The story begins in an unsettling way, with a man walking out of his house and sensing that something is deeply wrong with the world around him. The sky looks suffocated under dark, swollen clouds, creating a strange pressure in the air, as if nature itself is about to explode. Suddenly, thunder roars and rain pours down, but this rain is thick, black, and oily, splattering everywhere like a disturbing omen. Shock floods his face, and then he wakes up. It was only a dream, yet it feels too real to dismiss. Trying to act normal, Curtis gets ready for the day and joins his wife Sam for breakfast while their little daughter Hannah plays nearby. Hannah lives in complete silence, unable to speak or hear, and Sam spends most of her time patiently teaching her sign language. Curtis works at a construction company, while Sam stitches bags and cushions at home to sell on weekends. One day at the worksite, sudden rain forces everyone to stop working, leaving Curtis with nothing to do but kill time at a bar. The storm refuses to let up, so he drops a coworker home and heads back himself. That evening, Sam mentions how Hannah struggled to interact with another child, choosing isolation instead, making them worry about her future social life. On another day, while cleaning behind the house, Curtis watches dark clouds roll in out of nowhere, lightning striking terrifyingly close as their dog goes wild, snapping its leash and biting Curtis's hand. He wakes up screaming, realizing it was yet another dream, but this one leaves him shaken. The realism of these visions begins to disturb him deeply. Even while awake, he keeps checking his hand, half expecting to see bite marks. At work, he notices strange flocks of birds forming unnatural patterns in the sky, as if trying to warn him of something, only for them to vanish instantly. No one else sees them. Later, Curtis attends Hannah's parent-teacher meeting straight from work, muddy shoes and all, where the teacher explains the importance of sign communication. As the family drives home, the sky opens again and oil rains down just like in his dreams, blinding his windshield and causing a brutal crash. Blood streams down his face, but his only relief is knowing Hannah is safe, until a shadowy figure suddenly attacks, choking him and kidnapping his daughter. Moments later, Curtis jolts awake once more, gasping for air, trapped in the horrifying realization that his mind keeps dragging him into dreams so real that even his screams cannot escape. When this happens, it usually feels like something invisible has grabbed hold of your body, as if a dark presence is pinning you down. After a few moments, everything slowly returns to normal. But in Curtis's case, it's different. He manages to force out a faint sound. Hearing this, Sam rushes in, alarmed. Curtis wants to tell her everything, but fear stops him. He worries she might laugh it off or think he's overreacting, so he changes the subject. He casually reminds her that it's Saturday and suggests she go sell her handmade goods at the market while he finishes up some work at home. Once Sam leaves, Curtis's anxiety takes over. He builds a small doghouse in the garden and keeps the dog outside, haunted by the thought that his violent dreams might somehow become real. After cleaning around the yard, his attention drifts to the basement door, a place that's been locked and ignored for a long time. A strange urge pulls him toward it. After struggling for a while, he finds the key, unlocks the door, and steps inside. Time passes unnoticed, and by the time he comes back up, evening has already fallen. Sam returns home in a good mood, excited because she had a successful day at the market. She notices the dog outside and questions Curtis about the sudden change. He quickly makes up an excuse, saying animals prefer being close to nature and that the dog seems happier outdoors. She doesn't push further. Later, a news report plays on TV about a devastating gas leak that wiped out an entire family in their home. The story hits Curtis hard, feeding into his growing fear that something terrible could happen to his own family, especially with the disturbing dreams becoming more intense each night. The next day, Hannah stands by the window watching the rain. Curtis walks over to her, and freezes. For a split second, it looks like someone is standing outside, watching them. Panic floods his body. He grabs Hannah, backs away, and hides. The figure outside begins trying to break in. Suddenly, the entire house starts shaking violently. Curtis's heart feels like it's about to burst as objects lift into the air and crash down onto the dining table all at once. Then his eyes snap open. It was another dream, but this one was so terrifying that he's completely soaked the bed. Before he can react, Sam enters the room. Embarrassed and terrified she'll notice, Curtis yells for her to stay away. Confused and hurt by his reaction, Sam steps back. Realizing he's gone too far, Curtis apologizes for snapping at her. He then tells her to go to church after finishing her work and says he'll meet her there later. He insists she go alone and promises to bring Hannah himself. Though puzzled, Sam agrees and leaves. Curtis takes Hannah to the library instead. He gives her her favorite picture book, then quietly searches for books on mental health, desperate to understand what's happening to him. Later, they stop by the supermarket and load up on supplies. When they return home, Curtis finds Sam's family already there, which ruins any chance of going to church. The awkward stairs make him retreat even further into himself. He carries the groceries down to the basement and begins reading the mental health book in isolation. It lists multiple conditions, symptoms, and warning signs, but none of them give him a clear answer. Frustrated and scared, Curtis finally visits a doctor and opens up about everything he's been experiencing. After listening carefully, the doctor calmly reassures him that what he's going through isn't unusual and tells him not to panic, though Curtis isn't fully convinced his nightmare is that simple. Curtis reacts sharply to the doctor's calm explanation. He says the dreams don't feel imaginary at all, they feel solid, physical, terrifyingly real. He explains that even now, he can still sense pain in the exact spot where the dog bit him in his dream, and hearing this being called normal only frustrates him more. Desperate for real help, he asks the doctor to do something meaningful. The doctor prescribes medication and advises him to consult a psychiatrist, explaining that a specialist would be better equipped to uncover what's really happening in his mind. At the same time, Sam is at an insurance office with Hannah. Because Hannah cannot hear or speak, she needs surgery, and Sam is there to confirm whether the cost will be covered. To her relief, she learns that Curtis's company insurance will pay for the operation. For the first time in a while, she feels hopeful, something in their lives is finally going right. Meanwhile, Curtis goes to buy his medication and is shocked by how expensive it is, but once again luck favors them when the company insurance covers the cost. With Hannah's surgery secured and the medicine paid for, the family feels a brief sense of happiness. Still, Curtis quietly hides his pills from Sam. Sam begins planning a vacation, excited that the insurance coverage will leave them with extra money to relax and enjoy some time together. Curtis, however, is weighed down by guilt. He hasn't told her about the doctor visit, the medication, or how badly his mental state is slipping. The next morning, he wakes up feeling unusually calm. It's the first peaceful sleep he's had in days. At work, though, his thoughts drift into strange territory. He casually asks his coworker what kind of food would be needed if people ever had to survive in underground bunkers during an emergency. Then thunder echoes in the distance. The sound instantly rattles Curtis, triggering panic for reasons even he can't fully explain. When he admits this fear, his coworker brushes it off, annoyed, saying the heat is already unbearable and the last thing anyone wants to hear about is storms. That dismissal pushes Curtis over the edge. He suddenly becomes nauseous and starts vomiting, realizing that staying silent isn't helping anymore. He decides he must see a psychiatrist in the city, no matter what. Curtis gets into his car and starts driving, but severe dizziness forces him to pull over. Nearby, he notices large shipping containers being sealed and transported. Staring at them, an idea forms in his mind. What if he bought one and built a bunker behind his house? A safe place where his family could hide if disaster ever struck. The thought gives him a strange sense of control. From there, Curtis goes to visit his mother, who has been living with schizophrenia since he was very young. She has long suffered from intensely realistic nightmares and severe memory loss. Her condition once mirrored what Curtis is now experiencing, and it's the reason she became separated from her family years ago. Curtis asks her when her illness began and how she managed to live with it, hoping for guidance. But she can't remember much at all. Disappointed and shaken, Curtis leaves. Realizing he can't make it to the city in his condition, he calls the doctor and explains that the dizziness is too strong to continue driving. He asks if there's any reputable psychiatrist nearby, someone local who could help him before his fears and visions spiral completely out of control. The doctor reassures Curtis and tells him not to panic, promising to send him the contact details of a nearby psychiatrist. That night, Curtis sits alone calculating the cost of building a bunker, only to realize it's far beyond what he can afford. The next morning, he walks into a bank and claims he wants to renovate his house. The loan officer warns him that the house is already under a loan and taking another one could put everything at risk, even foreclosure. Curtis doesn't hesitate. He insists he'll manage the payment somehow and begs them to approve it. Against better judgment, the loan is sanctioned. He later shares his plan with a coworker, asking for help in building a bunker near his home. His friend immediately calls it illegal and pointless, questioning Curtis's sanity. Curtis shrugs it off, saying he just wants to try something new, and after some resistance, his friend reluctantly agrees to help. Soon after, Curtis visits a rural psychiatrist recommended by his doctor and opens up about his terrifying visions and hallucinations. During the session, the psychiatrist asks if mental illness runs in his family, and Curtis admits that his mother struggled with similar symptoms when he was a child, which eventually tore their family apart. The psychiatrist listens carefully and explains coping strategies, helping him understand what might be happening inside his mind. Later, Curtis, Sam, and Hannah return home from a school meeting, and as Sam and Hannah fall asleep in the car, Curtis grows uneasy, haunted by memories of his mother leaving and the fear that he might one day do the same. The next day, Sam returns from the market and is stunned to see heavy construction underway behind the house. When she confronts Curtis, demanding to know what's happening and where the money came from, he admits he took a bank loan. The revelation crushes her. She breaks down, feeling betrayed and excluded from a life-changing decision. Curtis calmly tells her that she may hate him now, but one day she'll understand he did this to protect their family. That night, Curtis takes his medication and falls asleep, but soon begins thrashing violently in his sleep. Panicked, Sam wakes up and, not knowing the truth, calls an ambulance. When help arrives, Curtis refuses to go to the hospital and finally confesses everything: his nightmares, the hallucinations, the storms that only he sees, the oil rain, the dog bite that felt real, and the fear that he's inherited the same illness as his mother. With a broken voice, he admits his deepest fear isn't the dreams, it's the possibility that he might one day lose himself and abandon the people he loves most. That fear is exactly what's driving him. Everything he's doing comes from the terror of losing his family the way his mother once lost hers. Watching Curtis slowly fall apart becomes unbearable for Sam. The very next day, they take Hannah to the hospital for a full checkup. The doctors confirm that her surgery can be scheduled in 6 weeks, and once it's done, she'll finally be able to hear and speak. For a brief moment, hope enters their lives again. Soon after, Curtis buys 3 oxygen masks from a store, already thinking ahead to how Sam and Hannah would survive with him inside the bunker if the worst ever happened. When one of Sam's friends visits and mocks Curtis for wasting money on something so absurd, burying a metal container in the ground, Sam shuts her down immediately. She refuses to hear a single negative word about her husband, saying that when the project is finished, everyone will understand why it mattered. By then, Sam has already told Curtis's younger brother about his condition. He comes to visit, clearly concerned, and asks Curtis directly why he's doing all this. Curtis avoids the question and instead tells him to focus on their mother and take care of her. If he really wants to help, Curtis asks him to take the dog away and keep it at his place. The conversation feels distant, almost cold, revealing the emotional gap between the two brothers. The brother leaves with the dog, and the silence lingers. Later, as rain begins to fall, Curtis retreats indoors. He suddenly sees Sam standing soaked in the rain, holding a knife in her hand. Panic grips him instantly, his body freezes, his mind spirals. Moments later, reality snaps back into place. It was another hallucination. By now, his mental state is rapidly deteriorating. He's constantly on edge, flinching even when Sam touches him, instinctively pulling away as if danger is everywhere. Not long after, Curtis's manager shows up at the house with devastating news. Curtis had used company equipment for personal construction work, which counts as a serious violation. As a result, Curtis is fired on the spot. Worse, his coworker is also let go for helping him. The manager leaves, telling Curtis he has one day to find another job. When Curtis breaks the news to Sam, she completely loses control and slaps him in anger, accusing him of hiding far more than she ever imagined. Desperate for help, Curtis returns to the psychiatrist's office, only to find that the original doctor has been replaced by a new counselor who knows nothing about his case. Forced to start from zero, Curtis feels overwhelmed and humiliated. He storms out mid-session and goes straight back home, throwing himself into the bunker work as if it's the only thing keeping him grounded. With Curtis now unemployed, the burden shifts entirely onto Sam. She begins sewing clothes for neighbors just to keep the household running. The money she had carefully saved for a vacation disappears, swallowed by daily expenses. The stress finally erupts into open conflict between them. Curtis apologizes, admitting that his actions have dragged her into endless trouble. Sam, exhausted and emotional, admits she also said things she didn't mean. The tension between them remains heavy, but beneath it lies a shared pain neither of them knows how to escape. "Please forgive me too," Sam says softly. "We'll delay Hannah's surgery for now. We don't even have enough money for her medications yet. I know you're under a lot of stress, but don't lose hope. Things will get better." She then reminds Curtis that there's a dinner event at Hannah's school that night, with all the parents attending, and asks him to please come along. That evening, the school hosts the dinner, and Curtis's former coworker shows up as well, still burning with anger because he lost his job due to Curtis. He approaches Curtis, clearly looking for a confrontation. Curtis tries to calm him down, asking him to step aside and talk privately, but the man refuses to listen. Fueled by rage, he starts shouting at Curtis in front of everyone, insults him, shoves him hard, and storms off. Curtis snaps. He shouts back, lashes out at the people around him, and starts yelling that no one ever listens to him. He screams that a massive storm is coming and that the entire town is about to be destroyed. Alarmed and embarrassed, Sam quickly pulls Curtis away from the crowd and takes him home. In the next moment, Curtis sees Hannah standing alone on the road, and terror grips him instantly. He rushes forward and scoops her into his arms. Suddenly, the sky fills with thousands of birds flying chaotically in every direction. Some race ahead, others collide midair and crash to the ground. At the same time, the town's emergency sirens begin to blare. Panicking, Curtis runs inside with Hannah. But when he opens his eyes fully, he realizes this time the alarm is real, it's not a dream. Without wasting a second, Curtis grabs Sam and Hannah and rushes them into the bunker. Everything points to an incoming storm. He connects the oxygen masks he had bought earlier to a single tank, and all three of them put them on. Confused and scared, Sam asks why he's locked them inside a metal container when the air outside feels completely normal. Curtis insists this isn't ordinary weather and that something violent is about to hit. By the next day, Curtis touches the bunker wall and feels convinced the storm still hasn't passed. But when Sam touches the same wall, she feels nothing unusual. To her, everything outside seems calm. Still, Curtis is terrified of opening the door. He hands Sam the key, but she gently refuses and tells him that if he wants to get better, he has to face his fear himself. She assures him they'll be fine. Her words finally reach him. Gathering all his courage, Curtis unlocks the door and opens it. Outside, the world looks normal again. The storm never came, at least not the way he imagined. Only a few objects lie damaged from strong winds, silent proof that while nature stirred, the real battle had been raging inside Curtis's mind all along. But nothing happened the way Curtis had feared. The sky stayed calm, the storm never came, and slowly, relief settled in. Seeing this, Sam takes Curtis to a highly respected psychiatrist. The doctor explains that Curtis is still in the early stages of his condition and that with proper treatment, recovery is possible. However, Curtis will need to spend a few days in isolation at the clinic, focusing entirely on therapy. Sam suggests that for now, the family stay away to give him space. Curtis doesn't want to be separated from his family, but he realizes he has no other choice, so he reluctantly agrees. Before checking into the hospital, Curtis wants to spend one last day with his family. At the beach, he plays with Hannah, building little mud houses with her in the sand. Sam prepares food nearby, smiling at the simple joy of the moment. Suddenly, Hannah freezes, her small hands gesturing frantically, she's sensing a storm approaching. Curtis immediately scoops her up, and just as he does, the rain begins to fall, heavy, dark, and oily, just like in his dreams. Sam steps outside and a few drops land on her hand. She gasps, startled, realizing that maybe Curtis's warnings weren't entirely imaginary. The line between reality and his visions is still blurred, and for the first time, she begins to wonder if there's truth in the fears that have been haunting him all along. Sam glanced out over the vast expanse of the ocean and froze. Above the waves, thick, menacing clouds had gathered, black and heavy, almost as if they were pulling the water from the sea itself. The sky churned violently, swirling with dark energy, and a chill ran down her spine. It was the same vision Curtis had warned her about, the storm he had feared, and yet, it was real. Curtis stood beside her, tense and alert, uncertain whether to expect disaster or relief. For a moment, he wondered if this was just another one of his surreal, terrifying dreams. Then he turned to look at Sam. Her wide eyes met his, filled with shock and disbelief. She slowly shook her head, almost as if to say, "You were right." Curtis felt a strange mix of relief and awe wash over him. All the fears, all the preparations, every sleepless night, everything had led to this moment. The storm wasn't just a figment of his imagination. Somehow, his mind had glimpsed the future. The visions, the oil rain, the birds, the panic, they had all been warnings, not hallucinations. It was then that Curtis realized the truth: he didn't have an illness or a mental disorder. Curtis was never sick. His nightmares were actually glimpses of the future, warnings of what could come, a power to protect those he loved. The ocean roared, the storm approached, and Curtis, for the first time, faced it with clarity and confidence rather than terror. And this is where our story ends.